be heard. Good afternoon, everyone. The telephone lines are open. The number to call from Connecticut, 203-862 WABC, New Jersey, 201-489 WABC, and from everywhere else, 212-563 WABC, in a program dedicated to the free and open exchange of ideas and of opinions. And what is on your mind this afternoon, huh? Well, here it is. You don't need me to tell you that when you write out checks or anything in which you have to put the date, it's 95, not 94. How many of you have already made that mistake? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. 1995. It is another year. And I wondered as I was reading over the passage of the year 1994 to 1995, all these displays of hysteria, virtual hysteria, over the fact that a year changes its number. And I was watching a particular countdown. Actually, it was a replay. I must confess, it was a replay because I slept while 94 turned into 95. I think New Year's Eve is for amateurs. But in watching this replay of the countdown, everybody cheering wildly, and I thought, why? What is there to really cheer about? I mean, I don't mind seeing people happy. I think that's good. I don't mind seeing celebration. I think that's essential. I don't mind seeing some joy injected into an otherwise lachrymose existence. That is certainly not to be condemned. However, I said, what is the cheer for? I really don't know. You could look at it another way. You could say it could be a time for sadness because that means one less year in your life, whatever your age, whether you're 18, 28, 38, 48, 58, 68, 98, one less year. And I wouldn't expect that New Year's Eve should become a time when everybody cries because one more year is gone from their life. But life is time. That is what life really is. It's time. It's not success. It's not failure. It's not riches. It's not poverty. It's not happiness. It's not sadness. It's time. It's time. And what, I asked myself, what am I doing with my time? I said a moment ago I thought New Year's Eve was a time for amateurs, and I think it is absolutely the height of infantilism to have New Year's resolutions. A New Year's resolution implies that you're going to stop doing something that you shouldn't have been doing in the first place. Well, if you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place, why did you? And if you don't like being overweight, why the hell are you? And if you don't like the fact that you are hooked on smoking, why do you continue smoking? And if you don't like the fact that you're a procrastinator, why have you been a procrastinator? I could go on and on and on. I don't mean to preach. But it's so silly to wait for New Year's Eve or by New Year's in 1995, I'm not going to... Come on. The fact that a number has changed on the calendar does not mean you have changed. And if you want to change, you should ask yourself, why? Why do you want to change? Do you want to change because you don't fit the idealized image of yourself? Because someone, perhaps in your family, perhaps someone you see on television, perhaps someone you see in magazines, who is portrayed as so glamorous, so slim, so wonderful, so healthy, so successful, you compare yourself with that image on a glossy page in a magazine, or the image on your television screen, or you read about someone and you think, my, wouldn't I like to be like that person? What do you know about that person? What is that person really? The person you're listening to right now. You hear my voice, and you have a picture. Even those of you who have been fortunate enough to see me either in person or the likenesses of myself, even those of you, you have a picture of what I must be. But do you really know? We all have our private hells, do we not? No, life is time. We don't like to think about that because we know that time is perpetually, inevitably, inexorably running out. And that is why the question you should ask yourself is, what are you doing with your time? Do you know that most people really spend a good deal of their time daydreaming? That doesn't make you a bad person because you daydream. But most of it is spent in daydreaming. I mean, when you were a little kid, maybe if you were a boy, maybe you went to a ball game, you saw a Dodger game, perhaps, and you came out and you said, I'm going to be just like Pee Wee Reese. When I grow up, I want to play shortstop for the Dodgers. And you really believed that. Or maybe you went to Carnegie Hall. Maybe you were perhaps more interested in things esoteric. And maybe you saw Rudolf Serkin play the piano. He said, when I get big, I'm going to play the piano just like him. And you really believed it. You really believed it. You identified with the person you saw on the stage or the person you saw on the baseball field or somebody, and you really believed that you would be that way. Somehow or other, by magic, you would become that person. Never thinking that person was gifted with talent that only his genealogy could give him, and that person worked very hard to hone those skills and those talents. Yes, I talked about talented being inherited. Oh, that must mean I'm some kind of horrible racist creature, huh? Well, the fact of the matter is we do, as individuals, we do inherit the talents that we have. Or maybe we don't inherit. My father was a very gifted musician, extremely gifted musician. He excelled in playing the violin. When he was young, he was a virtuoso, and then he went commercial and didn't appear on the concert stage. I thought I should be like my father because he was such a fine violinist. I thought I should be too. And so I took the violin. I took violin lessons. And you know who my teacher was? My father. As gifted as he was as a musician, he was not gifted at all when it came to patience. And he wanted me to be as good as he was, perhaps, and my lessons were horrible experiences. My mother would have to come into the room and find out whether I had survived or not, because she would hear this shouting, Again, you didn't hit the G sharp. And the bow poked into my ribs. And finally, one day, a moment of truth. My father said, Bobby, you're not practicing. And I said, no. He said, well, I thought you wanted to learn the violin. Why aren't you practicing? You need practice. And I said, I didn't think I wanted to play the violin. He said, well, why did you say you wanted to? And I said, because I thought you wanted me to. And he said, I only gave you the lessons because I thought that's what you wanted. And we finally came clean with each other. We were both happier afterwards. But I wished I had his talent for that. Now, what I'm saying is be honest with yourself. And remember, that though it's a different year, although it's a different number, that is not magic. That will not change you. That will not change you. If you really want to change, you have to work at it. Work very hard. And above all, want it. Now, all right, the sermon is over. You may come back into wherever it was you were listening before I drove you out. I know that people are thinking about more important things than what I had to say. They're thinking about the guide to the first 100 days, who will benefit, who will be hurt. Newt Gingrich's Revolution, Newsweek magazine calls it. Some of the magazines, most of the media, really is still shell-shocked over the great November 8th victory. A victory not of the Republican Party, but a victory of the American people. The American people who said, wait a minute, enough of this mad obsession with socialism. Enough of turning our backs on the founding fathers who gave us a great republic. Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. This is a republic, my friends. Because it is a republic, James Madison, who wrote the Federalist Papers, James Madison, who had more to do with putting together the Constitution than any one single person, although he had a lot of help, used the word Republican 211 times. Because it is a Republican form of government. Look it up if you don't believe me. And the only reason I'm saying that is I've talked to some Republican politicians. I've said, why do you guys not use the word Republican more often? And they said, we are. I said, yes, you are now. But 20-some-odd years ago when I came to New York, I was the only one who used that word. You guys were running away from it like it was a plague. And you know why? Because politicians are opportunists. There are very few of them who have conviction, very few of them who have principles they would stand by. Who was it in American history who said, I would rather be right than be president? I know his name, do you? Or is history so passé? Is it so passé that nobody learns those things anymore? At any rate, these are great times for all of us, really, not just people like myself who feel vindicated. And I've taken a lot of criticism, a lot of abuse over the years for my beliefs. But apparently, time has caught up. And people now are saying, no, we want less government. We want to be able to be in more control of our lives. We talk about the First Amendment, of course. We talk about the Second Amendment. Talk about the Fifth Amendment. There are certain amendments we talk about. The Fourth Amendment. Very seldom do you hear about the 10th Amendment. Does anybody know what the 10th Amendment is? 28 words. But the 10th Amendment is coming back in style. And that's good. That's what our founding fathers had intended. At any rate, if you want to make contact, if you want to be heard, if you want to be someone who says, hey, the first day of 1995 of the Bob Grant Show, I was heard. Hey, there's a good resolution for some of you. If you want to make a resolution, make this resolution. That when your heart starts pounding and your mouth gets dry, when you feel as though a cotton field has been planted, because you get queasy butterflies just thinking about speaking on 50,000 watts of WABC powerful radio, say, no, wait a minute. Other people are being heard, why not me? I can talk just as well as anybody else. Why not me? So if you've been holding off only because of stage fright or mic fright or phone fright or whatever fright you want to call it, say to yourself, no. Time is all that I have, and time is running out. I'm going to use that time. This time, I'm going to be heard.
Pleasure to meet you, and Bob, Happy New Year, and a successful one. May it be half as good as the one you had last year before that, with the election of Governor Whitman and George Pataki. Now to get back to brass tacks, welcome home. And I believe that you made a statement about I'd rather be right than be president. I believe it was John C. Calhoun. I may be wrong. I thought I knew my history.
Well, it's a good guess, but it's not right.
about what era was it? About the same time. But what I welcome you back is that with the day, I never thought I'd live to see the day when communism went down a defeat, and the Democrat who gave us the great society went down to defeat. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm not anymore. I guess I'm just quite conservative. But it's a happy day in my life, and above all, I'm talking to the best talk show host on the East Coast.
Well, I appreciate that, John. I thank you, and a Happy New Year to you. Here's Richard checking in on the line from Manhattan. Hello, Richard.
Hi, Bob. It's great to talk to you, and it's great to hear from you again. We missed you for a while, and I'm really glad that you're back. I just wanted to give you two suggestions that I think are soon-to-be great Republican governor. I emphasize that word Republican and great. I'd like to give him two suggestions, which maybe if you speak to him, you can pass on to him. First is if he wants to boost income and boost sales and boost tax revenues in New York State, I think he should immediately think about dropping the New York State and New York City and cities around the state sales tax on clothing. I think this would immediately give the economy a boost, and it would allow New Yorkers to stay in New York instead of having to go across the river to do their clothing shopping and, of course, buying other things while they're there. The second thing that I think I'd like to see him do is I'd like to see him issue an unconditional state pardon to the murderer Thomas Grassley, so that he will be allowed to be freed from New York State prisons and immediately extradited to Oklahoma, where he can be executed for his heinous crime.
He doesn't have to give him a pardon. All he has to do is to grant Oklahoma's request to have possession prior to New York.
Uh-huh.
And that wouldn't mean that he was pardoning Grasso. That would mean that he was allowing the extradition of Grasso back to Oklahoma, and it would relieve the New York taxpayer, and Grasso would get what he really deserves, and that, of course, is the death sentence.
Absolutely. The problem I would have with not pardoning him is that I think the ACLU might turn around and say that it was not within his power to do that. Okay, but it is certainly within his power to pardon him for his crimes in New York State. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think what you're saying is that you think the ACLU is more powerful than what it is, and I hope you're wrong, but I thank you for the call. Here's another John. How do you like that? John, this time from Brooklyn. Hello, John from Brooklyn.
Hey, Bob. How you doing, Bob? I just wanted to thank for your vacation. Look, I'm so nervous, but nice going on your vacation. It's no replacement for Bob Grant. I just want to tell you.
Well,
previous caller said just East Coast, nationwide.
Well,
I really
thank
mean
you,
it.
John. Thank you.
You are great. What I want to ask you is, what do you think of these Russians coming into the city and getting welfare to 65, 66, 67 years old, and they're getting like $684 a month? And
I think it's an outrage. I think it's an outrage, and we've got to do something about that, whether they're people from Russia, wherever they're from. As a matter of fact, a report confirmed what I've been warning people, and that is individuals come in as visitors, they get visas, and they overstay their visas. At least 50%, ladies and gentlemen, from our How Does This Grab You file, at least 50% who come here ostensibly, allegedly as visitors, wind up staying here forever.
That's right, sir. And not only that, there's 52 students in NYU getting free college tuition. Now, who the heck is paying for this? I can't comprehend this at all. I mean, that's $23,000. I got a 16-year-old son, and I've got to get all kinds of financial aid to get this boy into. And by the way, he listens to you and he loves you, sir. But I can't comprehend this. 52 kids, that's over $100,000 for each one. Who is paying for this? I can't understand this, sir. I really can't, Bob.
Well, we've got hopefully with a new team, not only on the federal level but on the state level. Hopefully, we'll correct some of these idiotic mistakes we've been making. Right here on WABC, this is Bob Grant, and what's on your mind, huh?
Hi, Ed Davis for AMCO. You pull your car out of the garage, and there it is, a little puddle on the driveway right where the transmission was. Where did it come from, and what does it mean? It's like those psychology tests, where you're supposed to look at it and decide if it's a butterfly or a pizza or whatever, and it just looks like a blob to you. The truth is, leaks can come from lots of places, and it doesn't necessarily mean a big transmission job. At AMCO, they'll put your transmission through the most complete diagnostic checkup in the industry. If it's a small problem that just looks like a big one, they'll know. Fact is, half the cars serviced by AMCO dealers don't need a new transmission. Go to AMCO now. Chances are that little leak doesn't have to be a big drain on your wallet. AMCO. AAMCO.
To speak to the AMCO dealer nearest you, call 1-800-776-4870. That's 1-800-776-4870.
You've each been chosen because you're the best. This is a big operation with big risks and big rewards, but it's very different than anything you've ever done before. First, there's only a 50-50 chance of success. Second, there's no backup, no support, no one to bail you out of trouble. And third, you've got to bluff your way in and then out again. And if you're caught, it's on the spot execution. But if you succeed, you'll be heroes in the eyes of the world. We are going to assassinate Saddam Hussein.
Shadow over Babylon. Many countries wanted it done, but no one country would dare attempt it. Until now. Shadow over Babylon. Fact meets fiction in a novel so authentic, you'll think it really happened. Shadow over Babylon by David Mason. The most spellbinding assassination thriller since Day of the Jackal. A story so close to the truth that it reads like tomorrow's headlines. Shadow over Babylon by David Mason. It's the electrifying new novel you simply won't be able to put down. Now with Signet paperback.
All right, let's get back to our telephones here on the Bob Grant Show on WABC. Are you thrilled to know that Slick Willie shot 2 ducks? Yeah, he killed 2 ducks today during a 2-day vacation in his home state. By the way, the biggest duck calling contest in the world is held in Arkansas, Stuttgart, Arkansas. That is a Manitoba mallard. What it's doing here in our studio in Midtown Manhattan is beyond me. Anyway, Slick Willie bagged 2. He killed 2 ducks. I wonder what he's going to do with them. Do you suppose Madame Hillary would know what to do with them? Anyway, tomorrow he returns to Washington and the first Republican-controlled Congress since the Eisenhower administration. David of Irvington checking in on the line. Happy New Year, David.
Happy New Year, Bob, and it's a great pleasure to speak to you, and I wish you and all the Bob Grant listening audience out there all the best for 1995. Bob, I just thought I would call and share with you and your audience that while you were on vacation, my mother passed away. She lived a long time, but she had a hideous form of sugar diabetes.
Oh.
And she lived to the ripe old age of 70. And because you and Jay and all of my fans have been so gracious, I thought it more than appropriate, to call you and share with you. And, in this world of craziness and insanity, I always knew that I had friends and supporters out there, but it's during this time, when you really get a chance to stop and think, about how many friends and supporters you do have. And my church was so gracious to me, and my pastor gave a beautiful eulogy. And when I called Roy Ennis and informed him of my mother's passing, about 3 days later, he was there to speak at the wake.
Oh.
And it was just a very touching set of days, and I must say that I am truly at peace, because I'm a religious person, and during the time that she took a turn for the worse, I prayed and I asked God that if he should desire to take her home, please let me be at peace, because, it had gotten so that we just couldn't stand to see her suffer. And,
you said she had diabetes. It wasn't late onset in her case, was it? She must have had it for a long time.
Well, she did have sugar for a long time, but it wasn't until a couple of years, when it really began to set in.
Now, have you been checked? Diabetes is an inherited disease. Have you been checked, David?
No, I haven't. I've been checked for blood pressure, and thank God, that the blood pressure is normal.
Even though you listen to talk radio, the blood pressure is normal.
Yes. It is. And even though I've been, in some battles with the politically correct from time to time.
Yeah, well...
it's still normal.
David, I appreciate your call, my sincerest condolence, and you're a great guy, David. What more can I tell you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, man.
Michael, you're on WABC. Michael was not there. Okay, let's try John. John, hello.
Hey, welcome, Bob. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I would like to answer that quote of yours that I would rather be right than be president.
Yes.
Well, that was Henry Clay.
You think so, huh?
I'm very sure of that.
Why do you say you're very sure that you hesitated?
No, I just finished studying in American history class.
Yeah, and it said that in it said that?
Yes, it did.
Really? Show me where it said that.
Well, he said it to a speech in the Senate.
Really?
Yeah, in 1850.
All right, I'm not going to give the answer till later.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you. Here's Anthony checking in right now. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Bob. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And nobody can fill your shoes like Jay Diamond. Bob, I'm sorry to hear about David of Irvington's mother. She passed away. And at least she's with the Angels and with my mother, Viola of Coney Island. And, Bob, I agree with you 100%. Oh, first of all, I agree with that other guy about these Russians. It's ridiculous already. But I definitely agree with you about this New Year's Eve malarkey, and I'm definitely the humbug of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and it's just an excuse for every jerk to go out and get drunk. Why do they go out and celebrate? I ask rhetorically. Because, to me, New Year's Day means it's the first of the month, so now I'm 2 months behind instead of 1 month behind my book. So why celebrate? I mean, now I'm 2 months behind, so now I'm off to a good start. It's just ironic that they celebrate. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically it. Welcome back. I'm sorry about David's mother, and...
All right, I thank you. On WABC, here's George checking in from... let's see, George, are you there?
I'm from South Salem, Bob.
George from South Salem. Yes, George.
Well, I wanted to welcome you back and Happy New Year. And it's good to hear your voice again on WABC. But I was a little disappointed why you were waxing so melancholy during your opening monologue.
That sounded melancholy?
Yes, in a way it did. I don't think that all New Year's resolutions are the result of reflection on bad habits or flaws that need change.
Oh, really? Well, then explain to me what you think.
Oh, I think that many times the resolutions are formed from hope and a determination to do better next year or this year.
Well, why do we have to wait until New Year's to say, oh, I'm going to do better? I'm going. If you know, when did you find out you weren't doing as well as you could?
Well, I
on January 4th of the year concluded, on June 5th, on September 16th. No, my point is, why wait until New Year's to start doing the thing you should have been doing? And who keeps their resolutions anyway?
You're absolutely right, Bob. There's a determination to do better. I think on New Year's Eve, it just is one of those things. I guess you're caught up in the whole thing, and maybe I'll make a resolution to call Bob Grant more often and get my facts straight. But
now that's a good resolution. I second that.
Don't you think that's a good resolution?
I do, but remember the quote: "Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof."
Yes, and also the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Well, yeah, we can throw that in there too. Next thing you know, we'll be a stitch in time saves 9. We better be careful here. On WABC, Vinny, hello. Vinny's not there. Okay, let's try Jim checking in on the line. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Bob. Happy New Year and welcome back. I'd like to speak to you about how the press is unfairly treating Newt Gingrich as he's coming out. Just yesterday in the Daily News, there was a cartoon on the editorial page which showed a little kid sitting in front of a TV set, and he's shouting out to his mother. He says, "Ma, a newt just ate Kermit the Frog." and there was a little sign above the TV that said PBS. This is an obvious reference to Gingrich's proposal to cut funding to certain PBS programs. But, the thing is, shows like Barney, Sesame Street, and shows similar to that make so much in revenues and advertising that they can pay for their programming. They don't have to rely on government funding to program their programs. And this is what Newt is talking about. But naturally, the press is kind of portraying him to be this mean, nasty guy, like they did with the Christmas cover on Newsweek. And I think this is what he's going to be in for. But I think Newt is a very tough guy. He's going to stand up to these people, and I hope he doesn't let it get to him.
Well, I concur. Thank you.
Arbitron's #1 AM radio station in New York, Long Island, and the USA.
I saw the CEO, the great Teddy Lukakis. We will be doing, in answer to many requests, inquiries, I should say. Yes, we will be doing another leukemia broadcast from the famed Rio Diner. I believe we'll be doing that on Saturday, March 10th. We'll be doing it at a later hour than we usually do, probably beginning at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because of the fact that I have that network program I do on Saturday from 10 until 1. At any rate, while I was there, I encountered two of the famed Santoro brothers. It's a large clan, and the major domo apparently is a fellow whose nickname is Tootsie Santoro. He was there with his baby brother Bucky, and Tootsie said, "We're a well-known clan in the state of New Jersey, and I want everybody to know that the Santoros of Woodbridge wish everyone a healthy, happy New Year." I pass that along. That is the high point of today's broadcast. Let's talk to United States Congressman Jay Boehner, a Republican of Ohio, who should be on our telephone right now. And Congressman, you say there will be more reform. I think this is your quote. More reform in 24 hours than this country has seen in decades. The congressional session, of course, begins tomorrow. That's quite a statement. What do you have in mind specifically?
Well, I don't think there's any question that the American people will see more change in this Congress in one day than what we've seen in probably almost 50 years, all put together. And part of what we're going to do is what we guaranteed the American people during the election cycle we would do, and that's to make 8 major reforms in Congress. It's important to change Congress, because if you don't reform the United States Congress, Congress's ability to change Washington, frankly, is rather limited. And what we want to do is to make the House more open. We want it to be more accountable and more responsible to the American people who sent us here. And so what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to reduce the number of committees. We're going to reduce the number of subcommittees. We're going to cut the committee staff by over 1/3. We're going to eliminate taxpayer-funded special interest caucuses. We're going to ban commemorative legislation from coming to the floor, like National Pizza Month or National Asparagus Day. We actually spend about $300,000 in that type of activity. It takes up literally 25% of the legislation that moves through Congress is this silly stuff. And that doesn't include all of the time that members and their staff and the floor staff take in putting all of this together. But beyond that, we're going to make a lot of other changes, like applying all of the laws that apply to the private sector apply to members of Congress as well. For far too long, Congress has exempted themselves from these laws, lived above the law, and as a result, we never feel the weight of the law. And so the inequities or problems that there may be, we never really get to see. We're going to eliminate proxy voting, absentee voting in committees.
I was about to ask you about that, and when I heard that was in the works, I said, hooray, these guys mean business.
Well, we just think that if it's important enough to have a committee, and the committee is going to actually mark up a bill and move it to the floor, the members ought to be there to vote on it. It's kind of a novel idea. But because we've had this proliferation of the number of committees and the number of subcommittees, and the number of assignments that members are required to have, like my case in this current Congress that ends today, I'm on 3 committees and 9 subcommittees. Physically can't be there. And so we're going to reduce committee assignments for members so that they really do, in fact, have to be there. and by outlawing proxy voting, they're going to have to be there in order to move these committees, move these bills out of committee. We're going to have term limits for chairman of committee, 3 terms. If for any committee or subcommittee, 3 terms, and you're out. No more Dan Rostenkowskis and Henry Gonzalez's and others who get on a committee, they get into the chairman slot, and they seem like they're forever building this huge power base. But 2 other issues that are, I think, real important is that no more committees can be closed to the public. Every committee will be open to the public and to the press unless it involves an issue of national security or a serious personnel matter where someone's integrity may be brought into question. This is real important. The last time we had the largest tax increase in American history, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Rostenkowski, decided that they were going to close the meeting, and this whole tax bill was done in the dark. We're not going to have that anymore. And the last real big point is that we're going to have the first audit in the history of the United States Congress. We're going to do an audit to look at all of the financing, all of the money that's moved around here over the last 10 years, look at our services, look at all of the activities here, and to help us make sure that nothing shows up on our watch that we weren't expecting. And secondly, to help us reform the way we actually do our business here to make it more efficient and, frankly, to make it a whole lot less expensive than it is today.
Well, this is all music to my ears, and I'm sure to most people. As a matter of fact, in reading accounts of the reactions of people all over the country and their expectations, they are expecting a great deal from the Republicans, from this 104th Congress. And by virtue of your delivering, I'd say the Grand Old Party will become the majority party, in fact, in America. And as a longtime Republican, I hope that happens.
Well, I think that you've got a very good point. The central issue of what we have to do here over the next several months to connect with a majority of the Americans in a real solid way is to rebuild credibility. And that's the essence of what we're trying to do. And we do that by doing what we promised we would do. We do it by actually enacting what we told the American people what we would do. It hasn't happened from a political party in a long time. But you're about to see the People's House here in Washington actually do what we told the American people we would do, and we're going to do it day in and day out and prove to the American people that they should begin to trust us in the Republican Party here in Washington.
Congressman Boehner, you talked about the term limits for chairmanship. That's different than term limits for actual membership in the United States Congress. I'm opposed to term limits. I think that the people acted wisely on November 8th and showed that we don't need term limits. But anyway, having said that, what about that promise, which I believe is part of the contract with America?
Well, I signed on to the contract and frankly helped put it together. I, too, am opposed to term limits. I understand people's frustration, but if you looked at what happened in 1992, look at what happened in 1994, it's pretty clear that the American people are doing a whale of a good job all by themselves, and having artificial term limits really isn't necessary. But I signed the contract because I believe in bringing issues to the House floor for a debate. That was the commitment in the contract, to bring these 10 bills to the floor for a debate and a vote, an up or down vote, within 100 days. I want to bring term limits to the floor of the House. I want to have a debate and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not afraid to go down there as an opponent of term limits and argue in the debate the merits of the case. The people in my district back in Ohio know that I'm opposed to term limits. I'm not afraid to tell people where I stand on issues. And what this will do will be to force some members out of the dark, and it will allow the American people to hold their member of Congress responsible for their vote and for their position. It will force these issues out in the public in these districts around America, and I think that's real healthy for our political system.
Well, that's really the bottom line. What is healthy for our political system? What will benefit the American people? And it looks as though there's a lot of excitement in Washington, D.C. I have many friends who've been in the Congress. One recently retired, very successful, long-term Republican. I don't believe you had a chance to know him because you came in 1992 and that he left. He was succeeded by Bobby Franks. I'm talking about Matt Rinaldo.
No, I spent 2 years with him. I was elected in 1990.
Oh, 1990? Okay, then
And
you
so
did. Then you did know Matt.
with him.
And he told me, he said, you know, one of the reasons I'm retiring is, he says, Tom Foley rules with an iron hand. He says, as a Republican, I can get no legislation. I can't, it doesn't have a chance of getting anywhere. I think guys like Matt, if they knew what was going to happen November 8th of 1994, maybe they would have stayed in.
Well, I know when I got here in January of 1991, just 4 years ago, I know how members like Matt and others felt who had been here for some time. They were defeated, didn't believe that they could win, had put up all of these years with having everything shoved down their throat by the liberal majority. And what I and other members attempted to do was to convince our members that we could win. Even as a minority, if we worked together and stood up for what we believed in, we could win. Mm-hmm. And I was involved in exposing the House bank scandal and the House restaurant scandal and the House post office scandal. And part of that was to get the American people to look at their Congress and get them to understand that it was time to hold Congress accountable for what they did and they didn't do. And to some extent, it worked. Got to give ample credit to Bill Clinton and his efforts over these last 2 years in bringing Congress more into focus. But the thing one of the big dynamics you'll see change over the course of this year is that it will become clear to the American people that the real power in Washington to change this government is here on Capitol Hill and not necessarily at the White House.
Indeed, indeed. Well, good talking with you, and I wish you and the American people good success.
Bob, thank you.
That's Congressman John Boehner of Ohio, and in talking to Republican members of Congress now, as opposed to talking to them before, you could hear the exuberance in their voice, because now they have a chance to do something. Before, they were just voices in the wilderness. The American people have spoken, and that's what this is all supposed to be about. The American people speaking, electing their representatives, and hopefully their representatives doing what the American people want, and at times doing not what the American people want, but what the American people need. That's leadership. Okay, let's swing over to the Metro Traffic Control Center. And the almost totally departed, but now he's back, Joe Nolan.
Well, it was a long 2 weeks.
It was such a long 2 weeks that some people actually were on the verge of missing you.
2 weeks.
Hi, Bob.
Yes.
I'm proud to say that as a kid growing up on Long Island, my mother's kitchen was wall-to-wall Bob Grand Country.
Well, thank you.
I just called about the issue of abortion. A couple of callers earlier, you raised the issue of the idea that kids are born that are abused, born into terrible situations out there in this world, and that I guess somehow that might be a reason why abortion ought to be legal or might not be such a bad thing. And the problem I have with that argument, Bob, is that if let's just, for instance, assume we're in the delivery room and a baby is born, and somehow we can look into a crystal ball and see that this kid is going to have a tough life. This kid is going to be abused. This kid is going to go through a lot of things, maybe become a crack addict and die, whatever. Once that baby is born and delivered, we would never say, because of this stuff that we know can happen, we now have a right to kill this baby. Why? Because once it's born, we all agree it's a human life, and to kill it is murder, no matter what is going to happen down the road in terms of a bad childhood or anything else. So that argument that you raised to the person, you raised the argument, you said, what do people who are opposed to abortion, how do they respond to that? I think the response is that argument itself doesn't get you anywhere. You still have to address the issue as to whether or not you think this is a human life or not. If you think it is a human life, then clearly there's no justification for killing it, no matter how bad the circumstances are going to be. So, personally, Bob, I'm not sure where I stand on the issue. It seems to me I'm a conservative and a libertarian. And another issue that came up with that caller was, the issue that always comes up. Well, who the heck knows when this thing that's growing in a woman's body becomes a human life? I don't know, you don't know, nobody really knows for sure, but it seems to me that if there's a doubt, and there clearly is, there's a doubt in my mind, that we ought to resolve the issue. If the liberty interest of a woman to control her body is on one side of the scale, and the potentiality that we are snuffing out a human life, and that's a possibility. If you is on the other side of the scale, that we ought to err on the side of defending the human life. Because after all, we do have laws that enable a woman to choose whether or not to engage in conduct that is going to...
You know, you're very clever, Adam. You're very clever, but you don't fool me for 1 minute. With all your verbal legerdemain, you don't fool me for 1 minute.
Wasn't trying.
Yeah, you weren't trying? My foot, you weren't trying. My foot, you weren't trying. You were trying, and you almost succeeded. You might have succeeded in fooling a lot of people. The fact of the matter is, what you said has absolutely nothing to do with the issue here. The issue being, do these people have a right to go in and shoot people?
Oh, absolutely not.
Then what the heck are you talking about? You talk about the sanctity of human life, but you don't seem to care about these people who are murdered by maniacs like this John Salvi.
I think what this guy did and what that other guy did is pure
And by the
murder.
way, you're no libertarian. Don't worry, you'll never be a libertarian.
Well, Bob, don't...
No, you'll never be a libertarian, Adam. Because if you were a true libertarian, you wouldn't have come to the convenient conclusion you came to.
It wasn't a conclusion, Bob. It was something to provoke a response, which you didn't address. You addressed this whole issue of whether or not people have a right to go kill people. I think that what these guys did is bad.
Okay,
this is all... jail, it's murder.
This is all very presumptuous of all of us. I'm including you, I'm including me, but since you forced me, I'll tell you. I do not consider it the taking of human life. I think you were on firmer ground earlier when you talked about the baby after it's born. I would even go this far. Does anybody any of these gavones, and I don't include you as a gavone, you're misguided, but you're not a gavone. Does anybody know anything about the Roe v. Wade decision? Does anybody know that it wasn't just saying, oh, a woman could have an abortion anytime she wants? No, it said this. In the first trimester, she can have an abortion virtually on demand. In the second trimester, only with doctor's concurrence and approval. The third trimester, only if her life is in danger.
Right.
Are you aware of that?
Yes, Bob.
Why do you suppose they make that trimester differentiation? Why do you suppose?
Okay, well, first of all, I can tell you why they didn't. They didn't because it's not in the Constitution. That was no reason for that decision. But, Bob, what Justice Blackmun is saying in that decision is that in the first 3 months, the woman has an absolute right to terminate this pregnancy. De facto, this is not a human being in the first 3 months. He must be saying that because if it is a human being, then it's murder.
Adam, you sound like an intelligent, well-read individual.
But what gives Justice Blackmun the right?
apparently you're not as knowledgeable as you posture. And I'll tell you why I say that. Do you know what was going on prior to, in the state of New York, for example, prior to 1970?
Well, let's just stick to the
state of New York. This is the point. In 1970, what were women doing who wanted abortions? They were still getting them, only it had to be done clandestinely.
Right. But the question is...
So you would rather that they once again go underground to get their abortion because you don't approve, because you've set yourself up as judge, jury, and executioner.
Well, I just don't know where Justice Blackmun has the right to determine...
Where does Adam have the right?
Well, we're talking about two different issues. One is...
And it wasn't just Justice Blackmun. Are you aware that there are 9 members of that Supreme Court?
Right, but...
You aware that it was a majority decision? It wasn't just Harry Blackmun. He happened to write the decision. Wasn't it 7-2?
It was 5-4.
5-4. All right, 5-4. 5 justices. And you talk about Harry Blackmun as though single-handedly he wrote the whole thing.
But Bob, as a Republican and as a conservative...
Oh, wait a minute. How about being a human being first as a Republican? What does it say in the Republican Party that in order to be a Republican you have to believe in being against abortion?
Bob, what authority does Justice Blackmun or any justice on any Supreme Court have to rule? They rule by virtue of the Constitution.
You know why they rule? They rule because it was a case that came before the Supreme Court, the case of Roe versus Wade, state of Texas. Now, what do you do for a living, Adam?
I'm an attorney.
I thought so. I thought so. I thought so. You're a fake. You're a phony and a fraud. You tried to pretend that you were just some average schlub. You're no average schlub.
When did I say I was average?
Yeah, you
I grew up listening to
in the
that.
beginning. And don't give me that. Don't give me that Blarney. Don't give me that Blarney about libertarian. If you were really a libertarian, you wouldn't have said half the things you said.
Well, I disagree. But in any case, having grown up listening to Bob Grant since I was, in elementary school, that clearly makes me something other than average. So you never heard me say I was average, Bob. In any case...
I think you're just trying to flatter me and hope that...
No, I genuinely enjoy listening to you and I enjoy the debate, but it seems to me that if you want to just quickly get back to Justice Blackmun, any Supreme Court opinion is only valid insofar as the justices are interpreting the Constitution. If we give these guys the right to create law without grounding it in the Constitution, this is what the Robert Bork issue was about. Then we have dictators. We don't have a democracy. And you can be in favor of abortion and still look at that Roe v. Wade decision.
And
say
yet,
that's an atrocity.
let me tell you, even under the Rehnquist court, we've had many opportunities to roll back Roe v. Wade. It hasn't happened, has it?
Not yet. Not yet. But
Not yet. But you right wingers out there, I mean you extreme, because I'm a right winger. You extreme right wingers, you're waiting. You're waiting. I don't know what you will have achieved when you do, but let me know, will you, pal?
A return to democracy in
Oh,
the Supreme
please,
Court.
please, Adam, please, please. Thank you.
Good night.
I tell you, I've said it all along. Most of them I love dearly, but they get me very exasperated. The pro-life people are the most tenacious bunch that I've ever encountered. They make the pro-gun people seem tame by comparison. And that's frightening because many of them sound mild like Adam. You know this fellow Hill who committed the murders down in Florida and has been sentenced to death? Have you ever seen him on television? Have you ever watched him interviewed? He sounds so mild. He sounds like a peace-loving, decent guy. He's a killer. He's a murderer. I'm not saying Adam is a murderer, but, they say, well, Bob. Now, I tell you, it's a very serious thing out there, in my view. Very serious.
Listening to you somewhere since the early 80s. I'm not exactly sure when. And I want to try to remain calm here. I don't want you to think that I'm a plant or that I'm being disingenuous, because I'm not. But in all the time I've ever listened to you, the only thing I've ever heard you go absolutely ballistic, apoplectic on is this abortion issue, and I want to know why. This is the only thing that makes you lose your cool. And I heard you, with two separate callers, be absolutely reasonable with you and not even get into any pretentious or feign any nobility, and you tried to rip them to shreds as viciously as you could. So I think I don't know what to think. What is it about this issue that makes you go so ballistic? I never hear you get angry like that except on this issue.
It's, I don't know if it's just this issue, but when intelligent-sounding, decent-sounding people like Adam don't get upset over the fact that these murders have been committed. That concerns me deeply.
Can I offer just one little thing on that? I think it's more like this from the people I know that don't seem too upset. It's not like they're out there cheering these guys on or anything like that. And I've heard a lot of so-called religious people call in and offer their version of what's right and wrong based on what they think is in the Bible or whatever book they believe in. But what I really think is that it's kind of like when you hear about a drug dealer getting blown away by another criminal. You don't believe in murder and you don't think somebody should do it and you wouldn't do it, but when you hear about it being done by another criminal, you're really like, yeah, who cares? The guy was a dirtbag anyway. And I think that's the way a lot of these people think. I don't think that they're...
Well, wait a minute. Are you equating John Gotti killing Paul Castellano with the murder of these two young women who worked as receptionists at the two abortion clinics?
No, not the two girls who worked as the receptionists. But I think when these people that are brainwashed like this get this thing into their mind, they go ballistic. Let me just say one other thing. The other thing I wanted to say is that a lot of people call up and they say, well, it's justifiable homicide because these people are killing babies, and I believe they are killing human beings, and I only came to that conclusion in the last 4 years of my life. But
you know what amazes me? I'm interrupting you, Lenny. You know what amazes me? I keep reading how the majority of the American people, regardless of religion, regardless of area, the majority of the Americans are pro-choice. And yet, if you tune in the Bob Grant Show, you'd swear that 99% of the American public is anti-choice.
Well,
it's amazing.
I don't know where they get
what kind of audience, what kind of group do I attract as callers?
Well, I know people...
It makes me wonder about myself.
I know people that say things like this. I've heard women say, well, I really do think it's a baby, and yes, I do think you're killing a baby, but I still think the woman should have the choice. Well, what the heck does that mean?
That means that she should have the choice.
Well, all right, but my last thing I wanted to say was...
She should have the choice to go full term or not.
All right.
That if she's in her first 3 months, the first trimester, that she has a right, a legal right, as well as a moral right to have the abortion.
Well, I just want to say one thing about that minister or priest or whatever he was that was on that was justifying these killings. The only killing that's justified under the Christian religion as a born-again Christian, the way I believe and the way I read it, is that if the government does it, it says the government does not hold the sword in vain. So in other words, if somebody's doing something illegal and the government deems that they should be killed, the death penalty is all right. But these people that are picking up weapons and going out and killing these people in the name of Christianity, they're wrong.
They're not killing people in the name of Christianity, for heaven's sake. Don't blame Christianity for the fact that there are a lot of lunatics around. And as far as execution is concerned, that is a legal matter. That is a matter that in no way, shape, or form is akin to going into an abortion clinic and shooting people up. Lenny, you're as jerky as the rest of them. On WABC, Susan, hello.
Welcome back, Bob.
I don't know if I should have come back. What do I need with this for?
You've had a tough hour and a half, let me tell you.
You know why? I'll tell you why. Because they can't accept the fact that I don't believe in their Neanderthal outlook.
I agree with you. You're absolutely right, and that's exactly what I've heard from everyone that has spoken to you. They are shocked that you should support abortion rights. And could I just clarify these titles that are being thrown around, pro-life?
By the way, yes, you may. But before you do, this is not a new posture on my part.
Yes, you're right. I know.
I have held this position.
Right.
I recall January 22nd, 1973, when the verdict came out, Roe v. Wade. I supported it then, and I've always supported it.
And I think all the women that are listening to your show today should applaud you for your stand. As a woman and as a mother, I don't think any thinking, sensitive, caring person would say that they're pro-abortion. And bear me out here. Nobody would willingly go in and abort a child in a half-hearted way. It's a very serious decision, and nobody should take it flippantly. We, and somebody who supports abortion rights like myself, I believe I'm pro-life. I absolutely believe I'm pro-life. I don't know if I could have an abortion. I would hope I never have to face that decision. However, isn't it interesting that the zeal and the anger that your callers have shown in the last hour and a half against all these women who have made this tough decision, why don't they have this anger for these children who are being abused, like the child that you just mentioned? My heart breaks for that child and the torture that she's gone through, and all these other abused children. I don't see anybody getting that angry over the living children of today that are starving and being abused. And I would like to see that anger that they have towards pro-abortion people, and I hate that title. I would like to see them more angry over the children who are suffering in America today. And that's really what I waited to say.
You know what I should have done? I should have had you speak for me for the last hour and a half or 2 hours, because you are much more eloquent than I could hope to be on this issue, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Bob.
Dave, from your car, this is Bob Grant. Yes, what's on your mind? Dave, are you there? Dave? Hello? Dave, from your car. Car 54, where are you? All right, he's drove out of the area, I guess. Let's try Bill from Queens. Hello, Bill.
Bob, I have to question the sincerity of some of these zealots and anti-abortion activists that kill people in the name of preventing murder. They kind of remind me of the animal rights activists also, because they always take up causes where the animals and the fetuses can't make demands on them. I wish they'd use some of this energy they have to champion the cause of abused children who are already alive, and who are suffering every day rather than try to make more of them be born.
Oh, God bless you for that. That's exactly the way I view it.
Believe me, Bob, I'm a father of two. Children need a lot of love and devotion to be raised, and the last thing we need is another 10 million kids that nobody's going to give a you-know-what about. We have enough of them already.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll squeeze in a quick word from Dennis from Staten Island. Yeah, Dennis, quickly.
Yeah, hi, Bob. No, I just wanted to let you know about the disgust I have from hearing what the federal judge Bissell did on the whole with Megan's Law.
Yes.
Totally ridiculous. To give somebody, an animal like that, the right to do what he did over again and let some poor family suffer what they're going to have to suffer and go through again because of this judge idiocy for what he thinks is the right thing to do for this guy's benefit of his own life and how to live his life. It's ridiculous.
Good. I'm glad we closed on a very sane note. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
That slams the lid on things for today. It is good to be back in spite of the agita. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you stay tuned for Lynn. Your influence counts using
#1 AM radio station in New York, Long Island, and the USA.
WABC, New York.
It's 7 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Doug Limerick. They're here. Dear members of Congress have arrived in Washington. The 104th Congress convenes tomorrow. And, of course, for the first time in many years, the Republicans will control both the House and the Senate. Here's more from ABC's Vic Retner.
A smiling Newt Gingrich arrived here at the Capitol happy.